Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 80 of the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. And today we are here with Sean Joy, CEO of Southern Star Dolphin Cruises and Buccaneer Pirate Cruise in Destin, Florida. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Greg. Good to be here.
Yeah. And before we get started, just want to check in with Kevin.
What's up, man?
Not much.
I'm here. I was just waiting for my my engraved invitation. I was just like, yeah. I'm getting all these cancellation notifications. I don't know if somebody said there's going to be a drop of rain this weekend, but I think I just did $3,000 in cancellations for this weekend. So exciting stuff, man.
Yeah, the weather.
How about you guys
right now?
Are they changing it up? Are they saying things are going to be crummy this weekend?
Well, what's brutal is when you look on the forecast, it has chance of thunderstorms every single day this week, or at least last I checked. So then people don't book or get worried about it. But then, I mean, you guys are here; it's totally fine.
Yeah, that's what they do. They love it.
So before we get started, we just wrapped up our early bird pricing for the Water Sport and Boat Tour Operator Conference, but I didn't tell you this, Kevin. We are going to do another early bird, but it's not quite going to be the $149 price. So until September 1st, you can get tickets for $175. So still a little bit of a discount, but it's not the early bird. Sean got the early bird.
It's like the mid bird.
It's like the mid bird. Yeah,
you didn't sleep in super late, but it's not quite the early bird. You're not getting the worm. You're getting fucking something else, like a half a worm. I got nothing, man. What is the mid bird catch? What happens? You don't get yelled at, you don't get a demerit. The early bird gets to keep his fucking job.
I guess so. So on today's show, we brought on Sean, and Sean's going to kind of walk us through his journey, because he came from a non-tour background into a tour background. I wouldn't say, Sean, you were fresh at it, or maybe you were.
Yep.
You'll have to kind of, he was fresh. And walking into so I've been in Destin for a very long time, and the Southern Star and the Buccaneer Pirate Crew, these are very high volume operations, probably one of the largest multi-passenger tour cruise business in the Panhandle. They do a ton of volume. And, Sean just kind of walks right in here. Chenmark, you probably remember Trish. She was on the show, I don't know, maybe 20 or so episodes ago, talking about transition, and stuff. Well, Trish and Chenmark, they acquired it, and this is kind of a big deal, in our area. This is a very popular business. So, Sean's going to kind of give us that perspective of, kind of what it was like coming in. And you came in last year when it was the busiest year we've ever had. So that probably presented a whole lot of learning experiences. But Sean, before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the tour business.
Yeah, so I come from more traditional middle market private equity background. Did that for a number of years in New York, working on distressed businesses that were losing money or heading toward bankruptcy, which was an awesome learning experience, but as you can imagine, a pretty stressful day-to-day environment, very pessimistic general outlook on the world, not something I wanted to do forever, just kind of happened into it and enjoyed it, but knew I wanted to do something else eventually. And then I actually heard about Chenmark, funnily enough, on a podcast and thought, that's awesome. They buy small businesses. They're much more long-term oriented, much more operationally focused. It's not just buying a bunch of businesses, slapping them together and selling them in 5 years. I just like their approach to business and their long-term orientation a lot more. And Trish and James, who I heard on that initial podcast, just seemed like good people. Fortunately for me, they are. And so a little over a year ago, I moved to Portland, Maine to work at Chenmark, headquarters there, and help with acquisitions and help the portfolio companies with kind of whatever they needed help with on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. And then from there, I started working at a commercial landscaping business in Cape Cod and Rhode Island. And then we engaged with the former owners of Southern Star and the Buccaneer Pirate Cruise sometime last year, I think in the late summer, maybe early fall of last year, then ended up closing on the business in February of this year. So I actually moved down here in January. While Chenmark owns a couple other boat tour businesses that I was familiar with just from being at Chenmark, I didn't work day to day with them. So I, kind of somewhat understood the industry, but certainly not in depth. And at my time at Aries, I hadn't worked with any tourism businesses previously. It was mostly consumer products, pharmaceutical companies, and I guess a fairly wide array, but no tourism businesses explicitly. So this is brand new to me as an industry. But fortunately for me, Steve and Wendy had built, as you mentioned, a pretty incredible business and reputation down here in Destin. So it's been a fairly smooth transition, and quite honestly, definitely the smoothest transaction I've ever been a part of. It was a very easy, straightforward deal. They're good people, easy to work with. There was no last second retrades or last second, discovery of information that was withheld for a long time. It was just very easy all the way through, which is awesome. And then since I've gotten here, it's been, I'd say, a fairly smooth transition. We were talking a little bit before, as you mentioned, year over year, it's been a big change. So trying to kind of get my bearings and see how the business is performing, not only for ourselves compared to last year, but also within the context of the broader market. And there definitely seems to be a bit of a slowdown in the tourism market in general. And I think that's probably for a number of reasons. One being, coming out of COVID with stimulus, people eager to travel, extra money in their pockets. And then two, Florida was, I think, a relatively more attractive destination because it wasn't as locked down as most places last year.
So when you guys were going through like the employee manifest, you're like, you like Buccaneer Pirate Cruise ship. You weren't like, wait a minute, who's this peg leg Pete? Seems like a real fucking liability on our hands. How did he lose that leg? He was open litigation here.
He was just waiting. I can tell.
I had been fucking hanging on for a space to get that one in, man. Like I had been.
No, we were all good with all the pirates. They're pretty incredible.
Like someone got cut with a hook. So I'm sorry. That's comic relief is my specialty here, Sean. So
it's okay. We all have our needs.
Before we get too much business shit in here, let me get in a wisecrack.
Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick break and talk about our sponsors for the month, AMP Agency. AMP is a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in tour, rental, and destination marketing.
We would not have sponsors on the show if we could not vouch for them ourselves. AMP Agency does a bunch of stuff for Destiny Water Adventures personally. I 100% vouch for this guy. I've handed them over to other companies in the past before they officially became a sponsor, and they have had nothing but great things to say. If you guys are doing your own marketing and doing a piss poor job of it, do yourselves a favor. Hand yourselves over to AMP Agency, specifically Steve Edwards, their CEO, will call you personally and have a great conversation with you about what you guys need to do for your marketing.
Listen, guys, they do pretty much everything in digital marketing. Website development, maintenance, Google AdWords, PPC, graphic design, social media management, SEO, and a myriad of other things. When you choose a marketing company, it's so important to choose a company that knows your industry. And AMP Agency knows activity marketing, especially water sports and tours. They got a promo going for Awkward Watersport Guy listeners for their managed websites. Use promo code Awkward Podcast when you go to amp.agency. Again, that's amp.agency, promo code Awkward Podcast. You get 3 months free and get started with AMP Agency. All right, guys, let's get back to the show.
Yeah. So I mean, so you gotta like you might be the only CEO I've ever heard of a water sport company. So like, tell me like what would be like, what's your day to day look like? Just because almost every guy I know is like owner operated, you know.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
Southern Star does, they do dolphin tours, and then the Buccaneer pirate ship does. Obviously, they're, for anyone who's unaware, these are like mock-ups. They have like naval engineers come in and or naval architects, and they build these like almost tall ship replicas, and then you guys go out there and do like a fucking you know, and then like somebody does a thing, and you guys go on a little, you know, what's the word I'm looking for, Greg? Like a mock or a represent, like what it would be like to be on a pirate ship, whatever, in the 1800s or whatever. So you're just
Keeping the train on the tracks, pretty much.
yeah. I mean, like, yeah. So it's like you're not like out there doing like oil changes and shit. Like, assuming like you're not in like a bilge, like, oh goddamn, the diesel on this thing's going. Like, I mean, so what is like a CEO? Sorry, you're like mostly just handling like finances and hiring and marketing. Is that like
that's right.
Day to day looks like?
That's right. Yeah. So we don't have any like true finance people. We do have somebody help us with our social, but I'd say finance, marketing, HR are like my primary focuses, you know, hiring, recruiting, closing the books, setting pricing, working on our marketing, you know, talking to the team about new cruises, things like that. Some of the operational stuff, but I'm not, to your point. Well, one, I'm not driving the boats. And then I'm sometimes helping with oil changes, but not all the time. And I haven't been in the build yet. So hopefully we can keep it that way for a little while.
So Sean, it's kind of interesting to actually talk to somebody that, you know, just jumps right in, right? Like usually you start as a mate or you start, you know, into some position and you work your way up to owning a company. But, you know, Chenmark, you know, it kind of has a different approach. You know, it's kind of like a corporately run tour operation. I'm seeing this a lot more, seeing private equity or large investment groups buy up established tour operations or water sport operations. I mean, Kevin, we saw this in Key West happen. So, you know, you walk in there day one, you know, what are some of the things that you're like, man, I wish it would have been really nice if I knew this.
Yeah.
Half the employees were fucking drunk. Wait, you did what?
No complaints.
Is this like a powder that you clean the boat with? Like, no, that's cocaine, Sean. Go ahead and get that right off the boat.
No, I mean, honestly, probably the biggest thing would be to know a little bit more about boat mechanics. So the within the first few months, we had an issue with one of the engines on the Southern Star, and these are lugger engines that have been in use for quite a long time. They had 22,000 hours on them and hadn't been rebuilt. So we knew that was coming, that a rebuild was coming. I was hoping that it wouldn't be during the year. But so we had some issue. We had a mechanic come out multiple times and we're troubleshooting the issue. They couldn't figure it out right away. And then eventually we realized there was a crack in the lining of one of the pistons. When we start taking it apart, we realize all 6 of the piston liners are in pretty rough shape, just due to the cavitation over years and years and years of use. And that was on the starboard engine.
Were they Caterpillars?
No, they were luggers. I'm sorry, that was on the port engine at first. Yeah, so then we rebuilt that. And the concern was, can we even get these parts? Because these are, you know, engines from 20 plus years ago, those models. And so getting a rebuild kit is, you know, dicey. Fortunately, we were able to get a rebuild kit fairly quickly. We were down for like 2.5, 3 weeks for the first engine, but we kind of knew, you know, if all 6 of those piston liners on one of the engines are in pretty bad shape, then if you looked under the hood on the other one, we're probably in a similar position. So rather than waiting for that to go out in June or July, or who knows, but I didn't want to get stuck mid-season. We tried to source the next rebuild kit as quickly as we could, and then during our next sort of lull, as you guys know, we kind of have those peaks and troughs throughout the year with spring break and summer and fall break and everything else. So during our next lull, once we got everything we needed, we rebuilt the starboard engine as well. But I would say that's probably the biggest thing in my mind of what I would have liked to know more, is the boat mechanic side of things. Other than that, I mean, a lot of it is similar to a lot of other businesses. At the end of the day, you're selling a product or an experience. You're marketing it. You're getting people on board. They're coming in and enjoying, hopefully, the cruise and leaving you good reviews. And, you pay your employees. It's somewhat similar to a lot of other small businesses.
Were you involved in the acquisition, or did you come towards the tail end of it?
Yeah, more towards the tail end, just because I had my hands full. To be honest, at the landscaping company that I was at, we were going through a lot of change there. Actually, ultimately ended up selling off one of the branches during my last couple weeks that I was kind of working through, restructuring the business a little bit. They were in a bit of a tough spot just because, as you guys know, wage rates have changed so dramatically over the past couple of years. They were locked into multi-year revenue contracts. So your revenue per hour or per contract was relatively fixed year over year, and your wages and your gas prices were not, which gets you into trouble pretty quickly. Fortunately, they've made a pretty dramatic turnaround. They have a great new CEO there who's doing a fantastic job. He's been with Chenmark for a while. But anyway, short story is I had my hands full at the time, so I wasn't as involved in the acquisition itself as I would have liked to have been. I was kind of just copied on all the emails and reading the back and forth and going through the data room on the evenings or weekends and trying to, stay as in the loop as I could, but I wasn't in the detail as much as I would have liked to have been before I got down here.
Yeah. So I guess, follow up to that is, what are some of the things that Chenmark liked about Southern Star? I mean, you probably look at tons of different tour operations all across the country. I mean, you chose Destin probably for a specific reason. You chose a water-based tour for a reason. What are some of the things what you can share? I mean, I'm not asking you to go on maybe a few points that really stood out. It's this was a really great acquisition because of this.
Yeah, sure. I think one is the longevity, right? The Southern Star has been around for 27 years. If you've done something for 27 years and managed to stay in business for that long, and you have the type of reviews that they have, you're probably doing a lot right. You're probably doing most things right already. I think just the reviews alone is a really nice screening tool. If people are giving you 4.8, 4.9 stars on average, you're probably doing a really good job as a business. Who knows exactly what's going on under the hood. You're always going to learn some new things when you take over any business or any small business. But you're at least providing a value that people are happy with and walking away, saying that was a great experience. A lot of times they would do it again. We get a shocking amount of repeat customers. People have come 2, 3, 4, even, we'll get calls and say, hey, I've been coming for 23 years, love the cruise, which is incredible. So it was one, the longevity, the reviews are a great indication. And then it kind of passed all the Chenmark financial, metrics that we look at from a size perspective, a profitability perspective. So I think the nice thing about the water sports space and some of these larger vessels, they're fairly resilient. They have pretty good operating leverage, and even if passenger count does decline, as we're seeing this year, because the tourism space in general, or at least in the Southeast, isn't quite as hot, they still perform fairly well. Maybe not breaking records like last year, but they're fairly resilient, which is nice when you're trying to build something that's going to last for a long time.
When you guys are looking at I mean, obviously I'm not like as Greg said, we're don't need to get into specifics, but like I have to imagine that a lease comes into play.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, it does. That was actually the one piece that I was more involved in, I guess, in the acquisition process was renegotiating the lease with the Harbor Walk, because that was, I think their existing lease was
Probably year to year.
It was a 5-year lease, I believe, but it was done at the end of March 2022. So we renegotiated a 10-year lease actually with the Harbor Walk, but that was definitely a big obstacle to get past during the diligence process.
It's like I mean, there's businesses that are month to month. They just have no protection, and especially if you had doing stuff with like city or county, and you have like dockage in the city and county. Like I think that's the most sketchy part of this entire industry is, and we do talk about it a lot, and it's something that like when it comes to our balance sheet, like we try and keep liquidity on hand, because if that ever comes up, like, as they say, they're not making any more waterfront real estate, or God's not making any more waterfront real estate. Yeah. So it's this area definitely has a reputation for landlords, like going, hey, this seems like a really good business. Like, I don't want to be in the landlord business anymore. I want to be in your business. And I've heard it more happen here. I've talked to multiple operators in the Destin area that were just like SOL. So you're hearing it here first, kids. If you can negotiate any like that lease, like, from the CEO of a private equity, like when you're putting your name down and building out your dreams and your business, year to year does not feel well.
I would always negotiate the longest lease possible, even if I only plan on being there for 5 years, because especially in an area like Destin, there's no slip space here. It's hard. I mean, you got to go to Fort Walton, which, for a multi-passenger tour with high volume like Southern Star, my guess is that there's a lot of walk-up traffic still at the Harbor Walk, or just the visibility. It's the best spot. I mean, honestly, you guys are probably in the best spot in the Panhandle for when it comes to like walk-up traffic and just, sea of people at night, people walking up and down. So yeah, that's great. 10 years. That's not easy to do around here,
man. If like reviews are what you guys are, I'm like looking at you guys right now, and you got 1,800 reviews, 4.8. I'll tell you what, man, we're about to crest 1,000 at Destiny Water Adventures, and we got it, and we have a long lease, man. Like, you guys come with stacks of cash. If that's like your benchmark is good reviews, man. 1,000 in 5 years, and we're at 4.9. So come on, Sean, bring the bags of money. You have a great office, podcast, you get the whole thing, dog barking in the fucking background.
I've always liked the business model of a boat tour or a sightseeing tour, because, unlike fishing or, water sport rentals, or let's just start with fishing, you don't got bait, tackle, the beating it takes on your boat, going, out to sea.
Well, that's
so if you think about it, like party boat fishing in Destin for 4 hours is like $70. Dolphin cruise price is around 35. Think how much more cost and how much more wear and tear on the boat it is for only an extra $30 per person. You only can take a max on those boats, 30, 40 people. The margins on boat tours is really good, especially if you know how to upsell people on F&B and other services. Like the pirate cruises, the merch is really big. I know, like when I took my kids, it's like you spend a fortune to dress them up. They're going to want everything else under the sun when you're there on the boat. But it's really a great business, especially if you can find one like you guys did, 27 years. And great location. Destin, dolphin tour boats, they run a lot longer year round here. I mean, you can run a dolphin boat year round here and still even be profitable in the off season. So I like it. I like the model, and it works in a lot of different destinations, not just Destin.
The boats don't lose their value, man. Like
they don't. No, not at all.
If you want to fucking hedge against inflation, buy a 30-year-old tour boat. You know what I mean? That thing is going up in price, man. It's like the fucking dolphin boats are Bitcoin. It's crazy. Like, I mean that, and it is. It's like part of your balance sheet. I know a guy who's got one in like the Buccaneer. That you mentioned the merch, and that was like the first thing he said was that he was like, man, like the tickets keep the employees paid and the rent paid, but he's like all the profits, the bottom line is the bottom line is then the merch, man. Like the little bric-a-brac and knickknacks and all the bullshit. Not to say you guys merchandise bullshit, but all the stuff, mommy, daddy, as a parent, I'm like, yeah, that's some bullshit, dude. No, you're not getting peg leg Pete's hook hand for $40 that you got from China for a nickel. Has that been challenging as well? Like, are you guys like up to your, or is getting stuff?
sourcing products for the
it has, and we're trying to get way ahead of it this year, just because I think historically it would take a little while, but maybe 2 or 3 months, and I think we have some large orders that we place for, like toy swords, for example, which is one of the best selling merch items that we have, that we placed those orders in early November last year, and they're still not here, and it's just delay. We've been able to stay in stock, sourcing from other vendors, probably not ideal pricing all the time or the ideal assortment of what we want, but ordering locally from distributors and things like that to make sure we have something. But for next year, we're trying to get ahead of it and establish some relationships, go through Alibaba, get our best bulk pricing we can, and order this stuff early. Maybe it's not ideal from a working capital perspective, but you don't want to miss out on selling, like you said, that very profitable merchandise because it's sitting in a port somewhere.
Yeah, you got to be up at the dollar store, man. Like that's like what we've been like going to like Five Below, like getting like buying boxes of pool noodles. Like, I mean that's the real man. That's the real money maker, and it's something that like we rarely in this industry talk about. You're constantly worried about filling seats, getting good reviews, but ladies and gentlemen, like it's really just even what our company's seeing. I'm just like, man, I don't like sunglasses. Like I don't give a shit what it is. If it can go in the water, like get it and resell it, because people are going out on those boats, and it's just like, man, it's just like a little floating retail store. It's like if you think physical retail is dead, man, come over into watersports, man.
Yeah, Amazon deliver quite quick enough to get to the boats yet. Fortunately, once we have drones, we might be out of business. But yeah, the merch and the alcohol and the food, all of the concessions, it's a great addition to the business. And like Greg said, we're a big fan of like the 149 passenger vessels, just because, like you said, I mean, the cost structure is pretty favorable. And even though it's less per person, if you have 149 people versus 30 or 6, it makes a huge difference.
It opens you up to a lot more marketing opportunities. Like, even with us being an OTA, like we can't work with a lot of private charters because they just don't have the margins.
Yeah.
And, with a multi-passenger, I mean, yeah, they can sell a handful of tickets at a, commissionable rate because, they're looking at the average rate across the board and they're using different metrics. They're going to still be wildly profitable, and, empty seats, fill them. I mean, I remember, when I worked down on the harbor, if we had a lot of empty seats last minute, like I'm pulling people off the docks and saying, hey, you want to go for $10, just to fill it up. You can do those type of things because there's zero cost. Like once you hit your minimum, I mean, maybe they'll use a little bit of toilet paper or soap. Like that's all you're expecting. Right. So it's I love it. I love the boat tour business model. And if you have the capital and if I had 100,000 and I had to decide between like 20 jet skis or one multi-passenger boat tour, like I am 100% going to go to that you can't buy a boat for 100,000, but I'm going there because I know just the mechanics of these businesses and how you can be profitable. Not that I want to unleash everyone on buying a boat, and running.
Good luck trying to get one before 2024. Hey, Sean, like how much, how prepared were you guys for this, for there to be a downturn in 2022? Or were you guys like, did you have your party hats on like the rest of us, like thinking like the parade was going to continue? And then now you're like, yeah, I'm the CEO. And they're like, wah, 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 wah. You're like, it's not my fault. Everybody's like, whose fault is it? They're like, the Awkward Watersports guy. They told it was going to be great. Like, we're optimists. So how much are you just like getting like, are you just like fucking every day sweating bullets and shit? Like,
no. I'd say in general,
donuts with the Donuts and Dolphins cruise. Like, fuck me. Like, what are we going to give you guys? Mimosas with mom, dolphins and donuts. You guys are like trying to come up with any D&D, M&M, like fucking.
Yeah, pretty much. Any alliteration. If you guys have ideas, let me know.
The cocaine cruise.
Maybe not that
one bump for dad. But, you guys, we don't have video, and you guys, like, I'm sure, like, Sean's like been watching it. I've mentioned cocaine twice now in the show, guys. I had a heart attack 2 months ago. I do not do cocaine. If you hear me sniffing, this is a vapor inhaler to clear my sinuses. My wife calls it my binky, like it's my kid, like. Sorry, I don't know why I've been on the cocaine cruise. I think would do really well, like $500 a passenger, $500 a seat. Cocaine cruise.
Fortunately, Chenmark is, I'd say, pretty conservative in general when we're underwriting deals. We definitely like the space, but looking back over, we typically look at the last 3 to 5 years of a company's financials, and looking at that, we could see, well, we kind of had to, in this case, throw out 2020 because 2020 was obviously not a normal year, especially in the tourism space. Obviously, nobody had a great year. But looking at 21, 2019, 2018, we could see pretty clearly that 2021 was an outlier. I think the long-term trend for Destin continues to be positive, but 2021 just spiked off of that trend line because of the reasons we were talking about before. People had extra cash in their pockets. They've been cooped up for 2 years. They were ready to get out and do something, and Florida was a relatively very attractive place to be because it was open, unlike a lot of other, typical tourist destinations. So we went in fairly eyes wide open. We didn't know exactly where this year would land, but for our budgeting and underwriting purposes, we kind of assumed it would be somewhere between 2019 and 2021. And that's been generally correct. We didn't predict it perfectly, but I think we went in eyes wide open with the right expectations.
You're not like you're not going to be like the John Scully of water sports. They're not like hanging 2022 on your fucking head.
Fortunately, not yet.
That's good.
Well, Sean, we're getting to the end here, but I just want to ask one last question for you. What advice would you give someone that just went through the same experience you did about, coming in from a different industry altogether into water sports? What are some good words of advice?
I would just say, be open-minded and be aware that you don't know everything. If you're going into a brand new industry, meet with all of your employees, listen to them. They know a lot more about the business than you do. And just keep an open mind and keep an attitude of being ready to learn and roll up your sleeves and do what you need to do to get up to speed as quickly as you can. But don't go in assuming you know everything.
Yeah,
that's everybody.
For sure.
Man.
Yeah. Well, how can people reach you if they have any questions?
Yeah. So you can email me at my Chenmark email is Sean, SEANJ at Chenmark, CHENMARK.com. If you're interested in joining the team or looking to sell a boat tour business, definitely please reach out. And if you have questions about the cruises or anything that we do at the Southern Star, the Buccaneer, my Southern Star email is Sean, SEAN at southernstar.dolphincruise.com.
Awesome. And Sean is going to be leading a roundtable at the upcoming conference. So Chenmark is a sponsor, and Jamie, Trish is going to be doing a presentation. So we're going to be well represented by Chenmark, and we love Chenmark. So
it's mutual.
Great. Well, that wraps it up. And if you would like to leave a review on the show, we haven't really pitched reviews because we've been talking reviews. Leave us a review, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Download us on your phone on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And
get on that mid-morning special before it's too late.
The midday special, 175. So
before you're the late bird and you catch no worm, you pay all that money because me, Sean, and Greg after the conference are gonna go on that cocaine cruise, man. We're gonna spend all that sweet money.
Oh God! All right.
I love providing editing moments for you, Greg.
Thank you. As always, keep it awkward.